Winter, gray Midwestern skies, the sound of traffic like an old ancient sea somewhere, and the Sears Tower right there in the background is looking down on a ballpark in winter. Isn't that an exciting phrase? Sounds like the name of a great novel, The Ballpark in Winter. It's like Gettysburg, lying there, just waiting for the next battle to begin. This is Comiskey Park. And believe me, this park has seen many battles. But Comiskey Park is a very special park, named after the great Roman himself, the old Roman. This goes back to before anybody alive today, practically, remembers when the skies were gray here in the Midwest. This is the Comiskey Park of legend. I'm Gene Shepard. I love the White Sox. I love Comiskey Park. And you grab a hold of my warm-up jacket, and I'm going to take you on a trip that you're going to enjoy.
Charlie Comiskey was a star in baseball as early as the 1880s. He'd already guided St. Louis to 4 pennants when he joined Van Johnson's Western League as owner of the St. Paul team. By 1899, Comiskey and Johnson were prepared to challenge the National League by forming the new American League, and moving the St. Paul team to Chicago was part of their strategy. In 1901, Comiskey's White Stockings played their first major league season. Their first manager, Clark Griffith, would pitch the team to 24 victories and the pennant. Standout players in the early years included Fielder Jones, first baseman Frank Isbell, pitcher Nick Altrock, and catcher Billy Sullivan. In 1906, the team would win another pennant and face the Cubs in the only all-Chicago World Series ever. Oh, these were the legendary hitless wonders. Their team batting average of .230 was absolutely last in the league. Crosstown rivalry was fierce as Chicago's 2 teams squared off, and the Sox beat the favored Cubs 4-2 for the World Championship. Oh, the presentation of the championship flag at the start of the next season must have been Comiskey's proudest moment. The old first baseman had his team and his league off to a flying start. The old Roman was becoming something of a sports legend in his own time. Commie had good reason to smile in those days. Oh, he had some fine pitching supporting his hitless wonders. Ed Walsh, the big reel, would win a remarkable 40 games in 1908 and would anchor the Sox pitching staff for years. Pitching with Walsh in those years was a dentist, songwriter, evangelist named Doc White. The charismatic Doc's best year was 1907 when he won 27 games. Really great for a dentist. Right-hander Frank Smith was another big winner for the White Sox, and he was joined later in the decade by pitcher Jim Scott. Comiskey's team would lose the 1908 pennant on the last day of the season. Oh, but the owner, celebrated in song and lore, saw better things in the future as he began planning a new home for the White Sox. The White Sox' first home was the 39th Street grounds at 39th and Wentworth. As the decade drew to a close, the old wooden bleacher stadium was proving inadequate for a growing number of fans. So Comiskey hired architect Zach Taylor Davis to design a modern ballpark to be located a few blocks away at 35th and Wentworth. Davis argued for an elaborate Roman-style facade, but the old Roman settled for his monogram in brick relief around the park. The scheduled opening on July 1st, 1910, was seen as the dawning of a new age for baseball in Chicago. Comiskey's friends in the press had generated great excitement. The public couldn't wait to see the new ballpark. Oh, they were greeted by a handsome brick and steel girder edifice. It was indeed a magnificent structure, and the fans were duly impressed. As for the opening game itself, well, Sox in new home win flag but lose. 28,000 fans cheer. The flag was not the pennant, of course, but Comiskey's own flag of loyalty. The Sox did what is probably the natural thing for them to do on that day. They lost. But for the record, the first hit was by Sox rookie Lena Blackburn, and the Sox pitcher was none other than the indomitable Ed Walsh. Chicago would finish that year in 6th place, 35 games out, But the trademark arch windows of Comiskey Park would soon let in the light of new talent as a very fine team indeed was being assembled. In 1913 and 14, the White Sox went on a world tour with the New York Giants. The highlight was a command performance before King George of England, playing on a London soccer field. They also played such exotic venues as Ceylon and before the pyramids of Egypt in what may have been the most elaborate road trip ever.
The White Sox sailed back to Chicago, back to the United States, aboard the Lusitania. Now that's a symbolic ship to travel back to America on, because the Lusitania, just a few years after that, was torpedoed, just about the way the White Sox were about to be torpedoed. The year was 1914. Now this is a pivotal year in history. The armies were beginning to march in Europe. The Kaiser was astride the world. F. Scott Fitzgerald had just entered Princeton. A young Hemingway was just growing up out in Oak Park. Things were in a fantastic ferment. And here in the great baseball temple of the world, Comiskey Park, the old Roman would gather his elegant friends in the clubhouse. This is the trophy room where we are right now. And they would gather after every game and smoke their 50-cent cigars and drink their elegant port. It was a truly masculine world. George M. Cohan, people like Ring Lardner would gather after the game, and they would finish their porter or they would drink their elegant wines and toast each other and hurl their glasses into the fireplace. That's style. And above the mantelpiece, the inscription, "All his friends are welcome." And they were. But it was 1914. They were not aware that this was a pivotal year in history, not only in world history, but the history of the White Sox. Glory years lay ahead, and just beyond those glory years were the years of ashes and desolation. It was an important time.
By 1915, Comiskey had put together a team that had a potent offense and strong pitching. This team reflected the young exuberance of a new manager, Clarence Rowland. The 36-year-old Pants, as he was called, proved that he could handle a big league club. Chicago reeled off 9 straight wins in May, including an 11-3 drubbing of Boston pitcher Babe Ruth, making his Comiskey Park debut. White Sox stars included the solid and dependable catcher Ray "Cracker" Schalk and the strong keystone combination of shortstop Buck Weaver and second baseman Eddie Collins. Pitchers included knuckleballer Eddie Cicotte and Red Faber, the spitballer. A late-season trade with Cleveland brought Shoeless Joe Jackson, and fans wondered if the Sox would win. Well, they would fall short that year and the next. But they put it all together in 1917, as White Sox historian Rich Lindbergh describes.
In 1917, a team was probably the closest thing to perfection that the Chicago White Sox have been able to accomplish before or since. Unlike the 1906 team, which scratched and clawed for every run it could get, runs came easily for this ball club. They had speed, they had defense, they had hitting, and they had pitching. It was a complete, solid team. They defeated the New York Giants in the World Series in a memorable play where Heine Zimmerman chased Eddie Collins across the plate that was unguarded in New York. As one of the contemporary account in the newspaper said, the Broadway showgirls cried, and the old town was just never the same when the Chicago White Sox came and defeated McGraw's Giants.
Well, the Sox had bought Comiskey Park its first world championship. With a strong young team, no one would imagine that it would be the last. In 1917, it seemed only the beginning. The war year of 1918 got off to a bad start as Joe Jackson and Lefty Williams were suspended for choosing to work in shipyards rather than enlist, and a dispirited team fell to 6th place. In 1919, the team rebounded under manager Kid Gleason and won its second American League pennant in 3 years. And the Sox entered the World Series favored to beat the Cincinnati Reds, but betting odds mysteriously dropped just before the series began. In the first game of the series, White Sox pitcher Eddie Cicotte, a 29-game winner, was shelled in a 9-1 loss. 23-game winner Lefty Williams would lose the second game, and the Sox would never recover, losing the series 5-3. Now, it seemed a natural enough upset, but a year later, in the heat of another pennant race, 8 Sox players were indicted for throwing the World Series.
Unfaithful servant.
They were first baseman Chick Gandil, third baseman Buck Weaver, pitcher Lefty Williams, shortstop Swede Risberg, reserve player Fred McMullen, outfielder Happy Felch, pitcher Eddie Cicotti, and legendary outfielder Joe Jackson. These 8 Black Sox were suspended by Comiskey, and their trial in 1921 was the focus of intense public scrutiny. Though Jackson and Cicotti had confessed to throwing the series when the scandal broke, all 8 stood trial together and largely maintained their innocence. The jury retired on August 2nd and returned a not guilty verdict the next day. Public feeling generally ran in favor of the 8, but the not guilty verdict didn't get them entirely off the hook. New Commissioner Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis barred them from baseball for life. Their actual guilt or innocence is still subject to dispute. But some fine careers were dashed, and the White Sox would take years to recover. Perhaps the most tragic of all the 8 was the popular and talented Shoeless Joe Jackson, whose remarkable career was snuffed out after batting .382 at age 33.
I can see it in your face. The memories will linger on. The good old days, they're all gone. Oh, lonesome servant, can't you see? We're still one and the same, just you and me.
The White Sox were on the outside looking in as Judge Landis presided over the resurrection of the game in the 1920s from the ashes of the Black Sox scandal. Fans, however, turned out in record numbers to see stars like Babe Ruth and a young Lou Gehrig. In Chicago, one highlight was the perfect game pitched by the Sox's Charlie Robertson in 1922. Leadership on the pitching staff was being handed from Red Faber to Ted Lyons. But even Cowboy star Tom Mix couldn't save the Sox from the total mediocrity of those years. His 1925 visit to Comiskey Park is one of the few real highlights of the decade. In 1926, Eddie Collins played his last year with the Sox, and the offensive burden shifted to players like Bib Falk, Earl Sheely, and Willie Cam. Catcher Mo Berg, Sanskrit scholar and OSS spy, joined the Sox in 1926. In 1927, star outfielder Johnny Mostel attempted to commit suicide during spring training. He failed. By the end of the decade, the old Roman himself was fading fast. In 1931, he died at his Wisconsin retreat, leaving the team to his son, Jay Lewis. Charles Comiskey's 50-year career saw baseball change from a regional field game to a genuine national pastime. The 1930s saw the Great Depression sweep the nation, with its breadlines and widespread unemployment. In 1933 in Chicago, however, the Century of Progress World's Fair offered an exciting diversion from the bleak specter of the Depression. The public turned out and was thrilled by the marvels and spectacles at the Lakefront Exposition. Chicago Tribune sports writer Arch Ward had a bright idea, holding a one-time exhibition baseball game in conjunction with the fair, featuring the game's greatest players. And it happened. On July 6, Comiskey Park hosted the first All-Star game, and what a game it was. The best players from the American League and the National League playing each other. The managers were Connie Mack and John McGraw.
We have a sellout, big crowd, a fine day, and I hope the best team wins. Thank you.
Among the fans who jammed into Comiskey Park to see that first All-Star game was my old man and my Uncle Carl, as we listened at home on the Crosley and marveled at the awesome display of talent. My father and uncle sat in the upper right field stands. In the third inning, Babe Ruth belted one deep to right, and the ball was coming right at my old man. He lunged for the ball, fell into a woman's lap, and narrowly missed getting that historic ball. He had come 6 inches from getting the first home run ball hit in All-Star history, and one hit by no less than the Babe himself. Well, after the game, to celebrate that great event, my old man and my Uncle Carl went to the World's Fair, which was at its absolute height at that time. They went to see the great fan dancer, Sally Rand.
Well, for years, the day that the old man saw Babe Ruth and Sally Rand on the same day, I mean, it brought tears to the family's eyes from that time on. That was a day of true history. Well, it was a day of true history in more ways than one, because it was the Depression. People were out of work, but baseball was at its very peak. People really went for baseball in those days. For the Chicago White Sox, the personal history of the team, it was just the beginning of what would become known as the Luke Appling era.
Late in the 1930 season, the White Sox brought up a minor league shortstop. He was a country boy from North Carolina who thought he was headed elsewhere.
I thought I was sold to the Chicago Cubs. I think it was a player involved, Doug Tate, an outfielder, whom was thrown in the deal, and that switched me from being a National League boy to an American League boy in the same town, you know.
Well, the new boy still had a lot to learn about life in the big leagues.
First time I was up there, the ball right center, bounced off the fence, I rounded first base, and you know, a country boy, you can pull anything on him. And the first base hollered, "Come back here!" And I thought it was the coach. I turned around and went back first instead of getting a double.
Luke learned quickly how to handle a bat. He became famous for fouling off pitches again and again and again and again.
I remember at one time, we were going to vote on whether or not we should charge him for all those foul balls, you know, if he didn't get a base hit.
Well, he got plenty of hits, and he developed a reputation for having a variety of aches and pains.
Well, I had a few injuries. I got spiked on the knee. I got 19 stitches up the back of my leg, played the next day, and I couldn't hardly get out of the lineup. Of course, we didn't have too many boys to play there for a while. They started calling me aches and pains, and I had some, too.
What he also had was a great batting eye. And in 1936, he won the American League batting title, listen to this, with an amazing average of .388.
I enjoyed playing, and I had a little success, and hit the ball well, and booted a few balls, caught a few, and everything else. But I wouldn't take anything in the world for it. Somebody said, "Well, didn't you miss playing with just one of the White Sox?" And I said, "I thought it was great. I didn't have to move every year. I'd break in with a different club."
Ah, luscious Luke, it was really great to have you with us. Ted Lyons and Monty Stratton were other big stories of that era. Stratton lost his leg in a hunting accident after the 1938 season, and his attempted comeback inspired a Hollywood movie featuring Jimmy Stewart and June Allison. All pitcher Ted Lyons did for the Sox was win 260 games. Jimmy Dykes managed the Sox for 13 seasons, and he even played straight man to Fanny Bryce's baby Snooks.
Well, why does he steal? That's naughty.
Well, after he steals second, then he can go to third base.
Why?
Because he can score.
Why did he score?
Oh, you're impossible.
He gave me his hat. He likes me.
Later, the faces changed.
Miss Allison, I'm glad to present to you, through my general manager, Mr. Frank Lane, a 1949 contract for the Chicago White Sox.
Young Chuck Comiskey took over the team for 1949, and Frank Lane became general manager. Trader Lane would rebuild, saying there were no sacred cows.
Bill Dickey, would you come over here and help Miss Allison sign her contract? Bill. Why'd you do it right, Bill?
Well, if Frank Lane didn't think Yankee great Bill Dickey could do it right, he did think that he could do it right.
All right? Okay.
Things were going to be all right around Comiskey Park for the first time in years as Comiskey and Lane began to deal.
Billy Pierce was the mainstay of our pitching staff for all those years, that we were building the team. He was actually our first acquisition, you know, that Frank Lane and I made. He was a winning pitcher, and some of the great matchups, you know, with Ford and Pierce were games that you could sell the seats 25 times over when you knew that Pierce was going to be pitching against Whitey Ford.
You know, another key acquisition came when Lane got Chico Carrasquel from the Dodgers. Replacing Appling at shortstop, the slick-fielding Venezuelan blossomed under the guidance of manager Paul Richards. Also coming of age was a sensational young man at second base.
Look, fans, look where I'm standing right now. Do you realize where I am? Second base. This is the actual ground that my favorite ball player of all time would walk back and forth while he's waiting for the next hitter to come to the plate. My personal favorite ball player of all time played second base right here for years. What a fantastic ball player he was. Who was it? Can you guess who he was? I'll give you a clue. To begin with, he was one of the great natural hitters of all time. This guy could place that ball into right field, center field, left field. He could place it wherever he wanted it. Every time he came to the plate, he was dangerous. And he wore a big number 2 on his back.
Of course, I'm talking about tobacco-chewing spark plug Nellie Fox. In 14 seasons with the Sox, Nellie was an all-star 12 times and 4 times led the league in base hits. In 1951, Minnie Minoso was acquired, and he promptly hit a home run in his first at-bat. Minoso was the White Sox's first black player and one of the most exciting players in team history. The addition of catcher Sherm Lawler and outfielder Jungle Jim Rivera almost completed the cast. In 1955, Marty Marion became manager, and in '56, another Venezuelan shortstop, Louis Aparicio, would quickly make fans forget Carrasquel and would form an enduring partnership with Nellie Fox on the field. Speed and defense were the major ingredients of these go-go White Sox, but one more character was needed to make it all gel: manager Al Lopez.
Finest man I ever worked with in baseball. A gentleman, a leader, and a man that knew baseball, and I thought Paul Richards did, and Paul did. But Lopez was a notch above him.
In 1959, the final piece came whirling into town.
And we have exercised our option to pick up the 54% of the stock owned by Ms. Rigney, and we're hopeful that we can persuade Chuck to join our group, and because he could contribute tremendously. Certainly the name of Comiskey and Chuck himself would be a great addition to any operation we might have.
Comiskey's sister Grace sold her majority shares of the club to Vec, but Chuck stayed on as vice president. The tree Frank Lane had planted 10 years before was bearing fruit.
White Sox! White Sox! Go, go, White Sox! Let's go, 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 White Sox! We're with you all the way. You're always in there fighting and you do your best. We're glad to have you out here in the Middle West. We're gonna root, 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 White Sox, and cheer you on to victory. When we're in the stands, we'll make those rafters ring. All through the season, you will hear us sing. Let's go, 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 White Sox. Chicago's proud of you.
The fans poured into the park to see Lopez's team behind 22-game winner Early Wynn grab first place for good July 12th. Al Smith hit 17 home runs and Sherm Lawler 22, but this was really quintessential go-go baseball. The bunt, taking the extra base, and generally running wild to unnerve the opposition. Aparicio stole 56 bases to lead the league for the 4th of 9 straight years. And Fox hit .306 and was named the league's most valuable player.
White Sox! White Sox! Go, go, White Sox!
And then on September 22nd, 1959, 40 years of frustration ended as the Sox beat Cleveland to clinch the pennant. Not since the days of Joe Jackson and Eddie Collins had the White Sox experienced this golden moment.
Go, go, White Sox. Chicago's proud of you. Wave 'em out. White Sox, White Sox. Go, go, White Sox. Let's go, 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 White Sox. Chicago is proud of you.
Comiskey's Baseball Palace was host once again to the World Series as Chicago faced Los Angeles. Lopez's team was a slight favorite over Walter Alston's Dodgers. The first game starters were Cy Young Award winner Early Wynn for the White Sox, and for the Dodgers, Roger Craig. But this was Ted Kluszewski's day. The late season acquisition from Pittsburgh drove in the game's first run with a seeing eye single. Then in the third inning, the big man with the bulging biceps and the cut-off sleeves hit a smashing two-run homer and was on his way to a record-tying day. Al Smith chipped in with a double, and after 3 innings, the Sox led the Dodgers 9-0. It was heavenly. And then, amazingly, in the 4th inning, Klu hit another two-run homer. 11-0 and 5 RBIs for Big Klu, tying the series record. Early Wynn pitched 7 innings of shutout ball, and Chicago won the first game 11-0. There was a feeling in the air that this was going to be easy. Oh, but that feeling quickly faded in Game 2 as Bob Shaw gave up 3 home runs, including Charlie Neal's memorable blast in the 5th inning. Well, left fielder Al Smith's surprise beer bath, oh my, is easily one of the most enduring and significant images of this World Series. It told the whole White Sox story. Rookie Larry Sherry saved the game for Johnny Padres as the Dodgers evened the series at 1 game apiece by beating the White Sox 4-3. At the Coliseum in Los Angeles, the Sox would lose the next 2 before huge crowds. A record 92,706 saw Bob Shaw face Sandy Koufax in Game 5. In true go-go style, the Sox scratched out their only run on a double play. Nursing a 1-0 lead, manager Lopez sent in Jim Rivera to right field in the 7th, just in time to come out of nowhere and run down Charlie Neal's long drive. Dick Donovan would come in for Chicago and wrap things up as the 1-0 White Sox victory cut the Dodgers' lead to 3-2. When the series resumed in Chicago, the Dodgers led 8-0 when Jim Landis went down. Landis was not hurt, but the White Sox were dead, eventually losing 9-3. Reliever Larry Sherry won his 2nd game to go along with 2 saves and was the series MVP. And it was the Dodgers, not the Sox, reigning as world champs. Record crowds in 1960 saw Bill Veeck's exploding scoreboard, but Veeck's jazzy promotions couldn't beat the Yankees, and in '61, he sold his shares to Arthur Allen and his brother John. New President John F. Kennedy threw out the first pitch in Washington at the '61 opener. The ball was retrieved by Jungle Jim, who reportedly said to the president of his scribbled autograph, "You'll have to do better than this, John." And the White Sox would have to do better against the Yankees.
The Yankees were a powerful ball club. They had guys like Mantle and Maris came along, and we'd go out there and battle them. And I used to hate to get beat by them. I'd rather get beat by anybody else but the Yankees.
Oh, that's so true. Strong White Sox teams finished behind the Yankees 5 straight years in the early '60s as the old Frank Lane team began to fade away. In 1961, Billy Pierce was traded, and by '64, even the little wizards of the infield, Fox and Aparicio, were gone. But in '64, a new young team was still battling the Yankees.
That was probably the best ball club I played on with the White Sox. We had a little bit of everything. We, as always with the White Sox in those days, we could use a little more hitting, but we had great defense, just like they did in '59.
Well, the '64 team won 98 games, but the Yankees won 99. This was the closest the Sox would come in those bridesmaid years. A frantic finish came up just short.
But 10 games ago, we were 1 game behind the Yankees, and we won 10 straight, and we finished 1 game behind the Yankees.
Another frantic finish would occur in '67 under manager Eddie Stanky. The Brat had his weak-hitting club in a wild race with 4 other teams. On September 10th, in a big game against the contending Tigers, Joe Horland hurled a masterpiece.
The ground ball bouncing to Buford. Ricky Hopp, the throw. That's out number 2. One more now. There's the ground ball bouncing out to Hanson. All right, Ronnie, throw it, baby. It's a no-hitter for Harlan. Up in the air goes the glove. Out of the bench comes everybody from the White Sox side.
Nothing was any different. They just weren't swinging the bats where I was throwing it. I had real good control that day. I didn't walk anybody. I think I hit 1 person, but it was an ideal situation at the park. The weather conditions were good. I think I was up a little more for the game because we had lost a heartbreaker the day before, and we needed that game to get us back in first place. And I just, everything was just right. I had come close, like I said previously, and I guess it was my time.
How's that for modesty? With the World Series in sight, 1 game separated 4 teams the final week, and the Sox played the last place Athletics.
We came into Kansas City with really on a roll. We had the momentum going, and we go out to the ballpark to play the first game, and we got rained out. A big storm had hit the Kansas City area, and we were rained out, so we had to play 2 the next day, and it was cooler weather, and it was cold, and sun wasn't shining, and it was just a dismal day, and it ended up being a dismal day for us.
Oh, Eddie Stanky's dream of a pennant died that night. The highlight of 1969 was the installation of an artificial turf infield at Comiskey Park. The lowlight was the unfortunate fate of rookie Carlos May, who blew his thumb off in the National Guard. It was that kind of year. At the end of the 1970 season, the Sox hired new manager Chuck Tanner and GM Roland Hemond.
Roland Hemond did a tremendous job. He was able to come up with quality players, and we tried to get 2 for 1, no matter who we traded, and we figured if we get 2 good players for 1 good one, that would make us a little bit better. We knew we couldn't afford the superstar because we weren't able in a position to get him. But we tried to get as many quality ball players that we knew about that possibly could complement our roster and make us a better team.
Well, one quality player already was there, third baseman Bill Melton.
In '71, there was a tie with myself, Norm Cash, and Reggie Jackson. Down the last 3 games of the season, I think we all had 32 apiece. And it just so happened that they ended on a Tuesday night, and I had a Wednesday day game. But it's just one of those things. It was just, I guess it was meant to be that year.
Melton's 33rd homer made him the first Sox player ever to win a home run title. Another first in 1971 was the debut of a new Chicago personality.
For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes you out at the old ball game.
Sox fans loved the irrepressible antics of announcer Harry Carey.
I couldn't see myself leaving St. Louis and coming to New York. Quite often, I would say. But if something ever happened in St. Louis, the one place I would like to broadcast would be Chicago, because I always love the city. It's my type of town. You know, the bars are open late, the people are dynamic and young and vigorous and sports-minded and want to argue and provocative. You know, it's a great city.
Bob Elson was another popular White Sox announcer. Although the opposite of Harry Carey, he broadcast Sox games for 4 decades. And behind the White Sox microphone for 20 seasons was the personable Jack Brickhouse. 1972 brought along Dick Allen.
I really believe that Dick Allen saved the Chicago White Sox franchise. He carried us on his back. Nobody did what he did. Nobody contributed like he did to a ball club. And there's no question in my mind, he had the greatest individual year of any player I've ever seen or managed.
I think by watching Dick Allen through that year, Dick Allen is a leader. but Dick Allen doesn't have to say anything. I think Dick Allen leads by example. We look at his average, 308, 37 home runs. To me, he hit about 390. For a season of 162 games, Dick Allen not only hit in the clutch when it was necessary or stole the base, but even his outs. I mean, he just hit the ball as hard as anybody through a year that I had seen.
Amen. Dick Allen was the leading vote-getter in the '72 All-Star Game, and he played all season at a near Triple Crown pace.
Everybody would like to be known as the complete ball player, and it's not all about run, hit, throw. There's other little things that has to be picked up in the game that makes you that good ball player.
He was one of the greatest base runners that ever played the game. He knew when to go. He never made a mistake on the bases. He knocked in a big run. He was the leader with the young ball players. And it could be 110 degrees out, and he had long underwear on and a 100% long sleeve shirt that hung down over his wrist, and he took that mammoth log up to the plate with it and wiggled around like it was a toothpick, and he was the Cadillac of the day. He was the man who, at the end of the year, they had to make him the most valuable player in the league because he hit the ball as hard as anybody can, or will, or ever has, and to me, he's extra special.
A real pro. Also special in those years was pitcher Wilbur Wood. The resilient knuckleballing relief pitcher was converted into a starter by Tanner and pitching coach Johnny Sane.
I'd pitch him every third day, and everybody say, hey, Wilbur Wood's career, it's going to be shortened if you pitch that much. So I brought Wilbur in, and I say, Wilbur, everybody's worried about your career. I said, you know, if you pitch like this, you can win a lot of ball games, and that your career may be shortened by 2 years. He says, give me the ball. He won more games in 4 years than Catfish Hunter, and Catfish Hunter was with a better ball club.
Oh, and Wood's knuckleball was a tough ball to handle for batters and catchers and umpires, and even fielders.
Wilbur and I were together for like 7 out of my 9 years in Chicago, and playing behind him, I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know what was going to be hit to me. I couldn't play any guy any certain way. So in a way, it was fun. But in a way, it really got your nerves up because it's really an off-speed pitch. And when you're playing third base, you know, I had a lot of activity down there those 7 years.
Well, Wood won 20 games or more, 4 straight seasons, but he was not infrequently a victim of sloppy fielding or lack of runs. No matter, he always had a lot of decisions.
One year he lost 20, but he still won his 20, but we just didn't have a club to cope with the quality of pitching that he gave us.
But Tanner did have several strong young players in the 70s.
There's a line drive, deep center, way back, all the way to the wall. Here's the winning runner on third. The White Sox win. The White Sox win it. The White Sox win it. George Arda doubles to the center field wall.
A young fireballing relief pitcher, Goose Gossage, was emerging as a star, and so was the smooth shortstop Bucky Dent. But by 1977, both players would be gone.
What we had to do, and Roland Heeman would trade a player and get some cash to meet the payroll, and we were struggling due to the fact that because of some outside business ventures that John Allen went into didn't quite pan out, and that eventually he had to sell the ball club. But 72 was the year, and we could have kept going, but due to the fact of certain situations that transpired along the way, we had to go in another direction.
John Allen twice kept the White Sox in Chicago. Once when he bought the team from his brother in 1970, and once again when he sold the team to Bill Veeck in 1976. Yes, Bill Veeck was back, and he brought Paul Richards back to manage. And in the spirit of '76, Minnie Minoso also returned as a coach and even extended his hitting streak to 4 decades.
Okay, now this song we're gonna play for Bill Veeck. Here we go.
And here went Bill Veeck once again with his patented promotions. He put short pants on his players, a shower in the bleachers. He had 101 Arabian Nights, and Limbo Night, and Music Night, and Ethnic Night, and clowns, and belly dancers, and all manner of entertainment and diversion at the old ballpark.
was kind of always fun to go to the park. Even if the ball club was not too good, you could go there and there'd be something going on, somebody parachuting out of the sky or belly dancers at home plate or some crazy thing, you know. But it was just enjoyable to go to the park then.
Oh, it was a wild time. Even more enjoyable was the wondrous 1977 season of the South Side Hitmen, led by Richie Zisk, who had 30 home runs and 101 RBIs in his one season as a rent-a-player. Oscar Gamble was another rent-a-player who led the team with 31 home runs. The Sox hammered a team record 192 home runs that season with a .278 team batting average. Another real slugger with 25 homers was Eric Soderholm.
We had about a 3-4 game lead in August, and we had a big series with Kansas City. It was a weekend series, and we were losing, I think, 5-3 in the 8th inning, and I came up with 2 men on and hit a home run in the bottom of the 8th, and we won that game, and that was the 3rd game we won of the series in a row. The people in the stands were just going crazy in Chicago. They were dancing in the aisles. I mean, the hope of 50,000 people were just, you could see everybody jumping and hugging. It was like a big family reunion almost.
And leading the reunion was Bill Veeck. But the Hitmen would fall short in 1977, and the next year, Gamble and Zisk would be gone, and some old ways would be returning to Comiskey Park. In 1980, Veeck suffered his 3rd straight losing season, and free agency was changing the nature of the game. So in 1981, the Sox were sold to Eddie Einhorn and Jerry Reinsdorf.
Shortly after he bought the team, the reserve clause was struck down and free agency came into existence. Veeck would have been capitalized enough had it not been for free agency, but with the advent of free agency and the rapidly escalating salaries, Bill found himself in a precarious financial position.
The showman will be remembered as much for his irreverence as his gimmicks.
It was kind of fun to stick a pin in some stuffed shirts and then stand aside so you get hit by the hot air.
Oh, may the great Bill Veeck rest in peace wherever he is. And I'll tell you, wherever he is, he's probably getting ready for next season. He loved fans. That's the thing that made Bill Veeck so wonderful. And fans are what make this game go. And every city has different kinds of fans. Brooklyn Dodgers fans, that's one kind of fan. People who go to Cleveland games, that's another kind. But Chicago White Sox fans, I know they're my people. I've always felt that if I was a colonel in some devastating war, and up there on the hill was a pillbox manned by 6 deadly soldiers with 50 caliber machine guns, a concrete pillbox that was totally impregnable, and to take that pillbox was a suicide mission. I'd look over the company from one end to the other, and then I would call out, "Are there any of you here who are White Sox fans? Follow me." And those 6 White Sox fans would line up behind me, and we would go up that hill to take the pillbox. White Sox fans are that kind of fan. They have gone 50 years, 100 years between pennants. Doesn't matter. Rain, snow, earthquake, hurricane, they're going to stick with the Sox. That's a true fan, a true White Sox fan.
I'm here 52 years. I've seen all the big league baseball players. Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Teddy Williams, and all the rest. I don't, Lou Apple, Teddy Lyons, I've seen them all.
Aparicio had the baby, his wife had the baby the same day I did. We were in the same hospital, and we went to visit each other.
Yeah, White Sox fans do think of the team as family, and the people who work at Comiskey Park are a special part of that family. And when I personally think of them, I remember one clarion call.
Buttered all over, buttered all over.
That was the booming call of Buttered All Over Ernie, one of the great vendors of all time. You know, if there's an all-star heaven for really sensational vendors, Ernie's up there in the all-star lineup. He's selling popcorn, he's selling peanuts to the gods, booming out, "Buttered all over." You'd hear him all through the stadium and on the radio, and fans wanted him to come to their section so that they could buy a bag of popcorn directly from "Buttered all over" Ernie. He was a star. What a treat. Another treat at Comiskey Park, Nancy Faust, who introduced the famous "Na-Na" chant.
Na-Na started in 1977 when we were vying for first place and playing Kansas City. And it was right in the middle of summer, and the fans were just revved up for playing against a contender, which was Kansas City. That's when it all started, and it was just, the effects were so awesome that we kept using it.
In 1981, new Sox owners appeared on the scene.
My old law school roommate, Jerry Reinsdorf, called me one day and asked me if I'd like to come in with him. He's got a chance to buy the White Sox. I've always been a baseball fan and was a vendor in Comiskey Park during the victory year of 1959 and was at all the World Series games. And I thought it over, and the timing was right. And the first thing I said, we're going to make this not the South Side team, which I didn't think was a good way to market it. This is Chicago's American League team. And that was one of the first things we did.
One of the next things they did was to dip into the free agent market and come up with a plum, Carlton Fisk.
The signing of Carlton Fisk changed the attitude of Chicago towards the White Sox. I mean, this team was the Rodney Dangerfield of baseball. It got no respect. And when a player of Carlton Fisk's caliber decided he was going to come to the White Sox, it sent a message to people that we were for real and we really wanted to win, and it was the dawning of a new era. And Carlton Fisk turned out to be that rare kind of player who plays hard because of pride. And he really and truly, more than any player I think that we've had here, is the symbol of what we tried to do, the symbol of a new era.
They also purchased from the Phillies slugger Greg Lazinski, who brought with him his special brand of long ball.
Left-hander to the belt. Elkers looks at first. There goes Patrick. The pitch is swung on and hit high and deep to left field. Way up. It is on the roof. He did it. Lazinski hit the top of the roof. A two-run homer to tie the score. His 10th in the air. The first White Sox player to do it since Fisk in 1977.
What a shot. A new excitement filled the old ballpark as the Sox thrilled fans with power, pitching, and speed. Then in 1983, a new power source joined the team, rookie Ron Kittle. Manager Tony La Russa's White Sox got off to a slow start that season, but the performance of young Harold Baines and the trade during the season for speedy Julio Cruz sent the team on a tear. Catcher Carlton Fisk handled a group of superb starting pitchers, and for Sox fans, a new slogan was coined as the team was winning ugly.
I want to be on top, forever on the up and damn the competition. Back in the dressing room, the other side is the weak bang. And we're winning, ugly. And we're winning,
At mid-season, the All-Star Game's 50th anniversary was held at the park of the first All-Star Game. The White Sox had been represented by some great players in previous All-Star Games, and this year, their rookie sensation, Ron Kittle, drew tremendous cheers from the hometown fans. And to top off a memorable day, the American League would ride to victory on the shoulders of Chicago native Fred Lynn's Grand Slam home run, the first in All-Star history. Just as Babe Ruth had hit the first All-Star home run 50 years before, a new first happened at Comiskey Park. The magic continued in the second half of the season as Sox pitching proved virtually unbeatable. Then, on September 17th, another long championship drought was ended.
Harold Baines has driven in 2 of the 3 White Sox runs here tonight, and he's got a chance to make it 3 of the 4 as the bases are loaded with 1 out. And the Mariners are going to pull their infield in. The outfield is playing shallow. Here's the pitch to Baines. Swinging a fly ball. This will be in. Center fielder's got it. Cruz is tagged. Here's the throw. Not in time. Stop wins. The White Sox have won the 1983 American League Western Division title.
99 victories, the most in the majors, and they finished a record-setting 20 games ahead of second-place Kansas City in the kind of season players and fans dream of.
Just once in a lifetime, a man knows a moment, one wonderful moment, when fate takes his hand, and this is my moment, my once in a lifetime, when I can explore a new and exciting land. For once in my lifetime, I feel like a giant. I soar like an eagle, as though I had wings. For this is my moment, my destiny calls me, and though it may be just once in my lifetime, I'm gonna do great things. And this is my moment, my once in a lifetime, when I can explore a new and exciting land. For once in my lifetime, I feel like a giant. I soar like an eagle, as though I had wings. For this is my moment, my destiny calls me, and though it may be just once in a lifetime, I'm gonna do great
In the championship series against Baltimore, Cy Young Award winner Lamar Hoyt opened for the Sox. He pitched a masterful 2-1 5-hitter to give Chicago a 1-0 lead in the best-of-5 series. But this would be the high water mark of the season, as the Sox would drop the next 2 games to the Orioles. Britt Burns then took the mound as the last hope in Game 4. Burns pitched a full 9 innings of shutout ball, but then in the 10th, Tito Landrum ended Chicago's season with this home run. Harold Baines would soon emerge as a true star in the American League, combining great power with high batting average and excellent run production to become one of baseball's most explosive players. In 1985, the great Tom Seaver wore a White Sox uniform as he won his 300th game at Yankee Stadium.
High to left, playable. Reed Nichols, caps underneath it. History.
Yes, sir, it was a memorable day for Seaver and for the White Sox, and the congratulations of his catcher, Carlton Fisk, was especially fitting as the 16-year veteran also posted an outstanding 1985. At age 37, Fisk found dramatic new power.
That's deep to left field. On the roof, Carlton Fisk on the roof, and the Sox take a 3-2 lead. Roof shot by Fisk.
Wow. Fisk tied Dick Allen's team home run record with 37 and set a new record for home runs in one season by catchers. Then, in 1986, pitcher Joe Cowley worked the latest White Sox magic.
Ground ball to short. Could be 2. Cowley has a no-hitter.
And the great parade of White Sox players goes on.
Oh, they were all great. I mean, some were greater than others, but they were all White Sox, and this is where they pulled their socks on before every game. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip through the mystique of this wonderful American institution, the Chicago White Sox, Comiskey Park. This park is going to disappear shortly. This clubhouse will be history one day, but hundreds of years from now, they'll know who the White Sox were, and the fan will march on. I'm Gene Shepard, and all I have to say to you fans that are still out there right now, you keep the faith.